Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the McGonagall Boxing Podcast. Well, the dust has settled on Liam Smith, Chris Eubank too, and I've got to say, I, like Cole Froch, like many pundits, were wrong. Now, I did say that if the old Eubank, a bit like Froch, and we're not backtracking here because my prediction was wrong, I said Smith would do it again. But I said if the old Eubank rocked up, like the 2019 DeGale Eubank, he'd beat Smith. He's a better fighter than Smith. But I didn't see the old Eubank coming back, I thought he'd been so badly damaged. He's got so much going on outside the boxing world. I just didn't see him bringing that back at 34. Boy, was I wrong. Fantastic performance. He overwhelmed Smith. He set up the jab. Again, it was like a pitch-perfect DeGale fight in 2019. He used his jab cleverly. He didn't just rush in like he did against George Groves all them years ago. Used his jab to set up, to feint, and then he created the openings. And then he went in and he fought aggressively in flurries like he does. He relentless pressure. He took the middle of the ring this time rather than dancing outside of the ring like last time, leaning on the ropes, thinking he was Roy Jones. None of that. All that had gone. Mac had got him fought him aggressively, which is brilliant tactics. And the brilliant old Eubank. And if the old Eubank rocked up, he'd beat Liam Smith, who's a very solid, very tough, but very orthodox fighter. No frills, you know what you're going to see. I would say, I don't consider Liam Smith world class, even though he's been world champion. I consider him sort of fringe world level. The world-class fighters, of course, we're talking about Charlos, even Triple G just about now, hanging on for a dear Fred. But they're the kind of Benavides, they're the kind of world-class fighters that Eubank needs to try and mix with. But Liam Smith was a great gatekeeper for that. I think he's fringe world level now. And if you want to be a great fighter, you've got to expose and destroy people like Liam Smith, and that's what Eubank did. Now, I know there's a lot of controversy about Liam Smith doing the weight right. He did look weight drained, there's no question about it. Didn't look right. The saying he overturned his ankle on round 2, which will be an issue, but even so, I think the best Liam Smith versus the best Eubank wins, and that's why it was so baffling in the first fight. Eubank was awful in that fight, tactically awful. So, but obviously, ironically, Eubank was weight drained after coming from that massive weight cut against Conor Benn. So, it's vice versa in many ways. I've got a massive issue with this. If you're not doing the weight safely, you call the fight off. I don't care how many fans you have to disappoint. Your health is your wealth. And I'm sorry, it's all well and good Liam Smith's trainer coming out after the fight saying, listen, I didn't want the fight. He did 42 pounds in X amount of weeks and it was dangerous. You just call the fight off. If Mayweather would, make no mistake about it, any of the smart, great fighters would have. You don't jeopardise your health or performance. And if they lose the fight, they lose the fight. They were in the driving seat. Eubank needed Smith. Remember that in this fight to right the wrong. He could have called the shot and said, sorry, no, October. So foolish mistake if that was the case. But it is what it is. He took the fight. He didn't look right. But that's not taking anything away from Eubank, who was tactically spot on. And like I say, the best Eubank beats the best Smith as far as I'm concerned. There wasn't any aggression from Smith, which was a concern. He wasn't throwing much. But then again, that was probably the relentless pressure from Eubank, who hurt him with that uppercut in round 4. And after that, it's almost like Liam Smith went gun shy. I said the uppercut would be an effective shot for Eubank. That was one good shot he caught Smith with in the first fight. One of the very few. And I said, him coming in, that would be a great shot to throw. And he did, and he hurt him. And after that, it's almost like Smith's confidence was completely drained from him. And he was in survival mode. But that's how Eubank needs to fight from now on. He needs to use poise, set up the jab, and then he needs to take the centre of the ring, and he needs to put the pressure on. He is a pressure fighter. He's a rough and tough fighter. And when he does that, you're going to get the best Eubank, and you're going to get a relentless fighter, a strong fighter. So credit where credit's due. A lot of respect. for Smith for taking such a beating and staying in there. I don't know how he managed to survive 10 rounds, quite frankly. I mean, one thing you can't deny is his toughness, but he was overawed. He was outskilled and outmatched by a Eubank that needs to carry on fighting like this. Bomac is a fantastic trainer for him, but obviously now there's massive worries about Bomac. He's currently in prison after carrying a loaded gun back to the States, which is foolish. So I don't know. It seems to be a curse of Eubank trainers. Every time he gets a good one, it seems to be for a fight, and then he loses it, and then he goes back to an average trainer that ruins him. He needs a strong, world-class trainer to discipline him and get him right tactically, because Eubank can lose. He hasn't got a great tactical mind himself, so he needs a great trainer to get him right, to get him tactically right. And when he does, my God, he's a fighter. He is a fighter when he gets it right tactically, like he did Saturday night. Credit to him. There's a lot on that fight for him, a lot of pressure. If he'd lost, it was over for him. It really was. Now he's got the world at his feet. He's got the Triple G. He's got the Ben. He's even got the Brook fight, which I don't think is going to happen. I think Brook, personally, is retired for good now. But, you know, everyone's calling him out now. So that was a great comeback. To get knocked out and then to avenge that loss is a big step. Many fighters don't do that. That was huge. So just shows you he's made a strong stuff, Eubank, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. Fantastic performance. The old Eubank was back. I said it needed to be, and it was. Now he needs to keep that up. I think he's got 2 or 3 good years left in him. He keeps himself in great shape. As long as he doesn't do any crazy weight drains. I don't want to see him fight Conor Benn. The whole drug scandal thing with Ben's ruined him as far as I'm concerned. And plus, it's dangerous for Eubank. That's one thing his dad was saying. It's dangerous. I don't want to see him weight drained and weak. Move on. Keep to the middleweight and super middleweight divisions. That's your strength. That's your core. Go for a world title now. If he fights like that, he's got a real chance. As for Liam Smith, I know he's calling for a trilogy. I can't see it happening. I think, you know, Eubank unfortunately calls the shots. Even when he lost, he calls the shots. But now, even more so, I think it's not going to happen for him. So it's a big mistake taking that fight. He needs to rebuild. If he's going to carry on, he needs to rebuild. He needs a rebuilding fight at European level. And then he needs to go and try and fight for a world title. Or a big last ride money fight. Maybe domestically. You know, like AKA like the Anthony Fowler fight. But it's a tough road back for him now. Because he's not a huge name like Eubank. You know, and he got beaten up. So he needs time to recover, and he's 35, nearly 36. So maybe retirement. I don't know if he doesn't get the trilogy fight, which is unlikely, but we'll see. As for Eubank, he's back on the map, and he just needs to carry on like he fought Saturday, because that was a world-class performance from a world-class fighter.